positions. Yet when these canine heroes retire, they're too often left overseas. American Humane works to bring these valiant dogs home and reunite families for happy, healthy retirements. To learn how you can help, visit AmericanHumane.org.
This is WCPT 820, where you can hear the Stephanie Miller Show every weekday, 8 to 11 a.m., because facts matter. This is AP News. I'm Rita Foley. Republicans are firing back as President Biden accuses former President Trump and his supporters of fanning the flames of political violence. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy.
In the past 2 years, Joe Biden has launched an assault on the soul of America.
The AP's Sagar Magani.
Standing outside Philadelphia's Independence Hall, where America's founding documents were signed,
MAGA Republicans do not respect the Constitution.
The president sounded an alarm.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism, the very foundation of our republic.
In a primetime address, the president both resurrected a campaign theme by calling this a battle for the nation's soul and sharply turned away from an inaugural address pledge to unite the nation, though he says defending democracy is something that should transcend ideology.
And I'm asking every American to join me.
Sagar Magani, Washington.
Heavy fighting's reported near Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant this morning. Yesterday, visiting experts from the UN's nuclear watchdog agency voiced concerns about structural damage to the site. Here in the U.S., it appears many states barely use those red flag laws some say are the most powerful.
Reverend Williams is on the line.
Okay. A new AP analysis finds the lack of awareness about...
Reverend Williams, how are you?
Some authorities also...
Good, how are you? I am doing fine, and I'm sorry I'm in the last bit of this.
Home last night, but the handbill is
interview this morning.
The man was overpowered by security. Brutal heat in the west. It could hit 116 degrees in Palm Springs, California. 110 today. This is AP News. The latest now on Jackson, Mississippi's water crisis.
Many of the 150,000 residents of Mississippi's capital city are standing in line for water. Some arriving at pumper trucks with empty paint cans and 55-gallon trash cans to bring water back to their homes. Schools and businesses are closed. Resident Shirley Harrington likens conditions to a third world country.
I've been in places where there is rationing of water, not just on some superficial crisis basis, but it's a normal way of life. But not in the United States. Right. This should not be happening.
The city has deferred major maintenance and improvements for some 40 years, while the state fails to provide enough funding for such projects.
Okay.
Federal infrastructure.
I'm so sorry. I'm trying to get the last bit of this.
Earlier this year, passed a massive hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm Tim McGuire.
And Anita Foley, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 show.
Oh, and I'm going to call you just after the show.
We have good news on the Outdoor Expressway after seeing some huge delays in full-side road construction. Harlem, Tri-State had some reopening and things are loosening up. It's now a much improved 31 minutes from Gestapo Lakeshore Drive to the Veterans Memorial Tollway. Inbound, it's 40 minutes. There was some guardrail work near Pulaski, so traffic slow Harlem to Pulaski. There's some midway traffic mixed in. The outbound Kennedy has slow traffic approaching 190 with folks heading to O'Hare. Holiday weekend, traffic slow on westbound 190. Going into the terminal area at the airport, it's 21 minutes from downtown Chicago to O'Hare. The Adams Tollway eastbound, there was a crash on the entrance from Elmhurst Road. It just cleared. That's traffic. I'm Telemonte.
Tom Hartman.
These crisis pregnancy centers look like doctor's offices. Typically what they offer are pregnancy tests, and they advertise ultrasounds. But the ultrasounds they offer are, quote, for entertainment purposes only. In other words, this is not an actual medical diagnostic tool. And the reason that they're doing this is not regulated by HIPAA. The health Privacy Act.
The Tom Hartman radio program, weekdays 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. on WCPT 820.
For years, the special interests got whatever they wanted in Washington, and Americans paid the price. That all changes right now, because Congress just passed the Limited Action Reduction Act, and President Biden signed it into law. Here's what that means for you. First, Medicare can now finally negotiate lower prices for prescription drugs. Drugs like insulin will cost a fraction of what they do today. The days of drug companies price gouging seniors are over. Second, it builds on the Affordable Care Act to lower healthcare premiums for 13 million Americans. And third, this bill includes the largest investment ever to take on climate change. Clean energy production.
30 seconds.
Okay,
The
thank
price of
you.
fossil fuels will come way down and new jobs will be created. The entire bill is paid for by making the biggest corporations and the ultra wealthy pay their fair share, saving Americans money today, saving the planet for future generations tomorrow. Learn more at whitehouse.gov. Paid for by House Majority.
10 seconds.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
Change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Friday, September 2nd, 2022. Happy Labor Day weekend, everybody. We want to send our love to all those who work, everyone who works, and the people who want to work are in service to our nation and into our world. And we thank God for all workers today. Happy Labor Day weekend. Happy Labor Day weekend, everybody. Let's talk about election 2024. Everyone's looking at Georgia. Everyone's looking at Georgia. And let me just say, I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Call me at 773-763-9278. How many of you saw President Biden's speech last night? It was strong. It was robust. It was in Philadelphia, just like then candidate Barack Obama in 2008. When he gave his speech that many people said was about race, but it was about America, really. Race was at the heart of it, but race and racism is at the heart of America, as are other issues. Classism is at the heart of the American experiment. So what did you make of his speech last night? I want to get your thoughts. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278, as we get into election 2024, election 2022, the midterms, but also election 2024. This is of tremendous consequence, everybody. And I want to know what you think about what's happening in Georgia. That's like a bellwether election. Raphael Warnock, the pastor of the iconic Ebenezer Church, really the home of the King family, the iconic King family. He's the pastoral heir to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and Daddy King. Woo. And he's been a fine, but he's really neck and neck with football hero Herschel Walker, someone who's had a very troubled past, and for his portion, from his campaign and from so-called dark money from the Republican side, they have launched personal attacks upon Reverend Dr. Warnock. And I want to know what you think about that and how one should respond to that. I mean, how should he respond? How can he respond? He's responded by not mounting attack ads, but by saying, hey, this is what his record, this is what he has said, that these things are not right. But he has been attacked, on the other hand, by the Walker campaign for his personal life. He and his wife have had a contentious divorce. Do you know of any nice divorces? And so we're going to be talking about that in the second hour. And this NBC Ipsos poll that shows that the most likable, the most favorable candidate on the Democratic side, and quite frankly, in American politics today, it's not President Trump, former President Trump. It's not even President Biden. It's Bernie Sanders, this octogenarian. Yeah, everybody. Most people like him and would like to see him run. What do you think about that? And if you read the headlines, you have to read the data to get that information. If you read the headlines, number one, they don't say that. And
no one in corporate media wants to talk about it. You know, they're looking for the Biden comeback, and I am too, but I think you also need to report how people are feeling out here and ask them why. So we'll be talking about that today, and of course, getting some lockdown, some information on how we can really make it through the Labor Day weekend with Dr. Shanina Knighton. And we're going to hear from Bryce Green. You know, it's the first anniversary of America's withdrawal from Afghanistan. He's going to have a really interesting piece on NPR. So at the bottom of the hour, we're going to be talking about what's happening with Afghanistan and why are we holding on to their money. So let's get to it, everybody. I'm Santita Jackson. I cannot wait to get going with this show with you today. Chicago will have a high of 85 degrees. It will be cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 88 degrees, partly cloudy. The Dow closed up 145 points yesterday, but not so the NASDAQ. They closed down 31 points. The S&P 500 closed up 11 points. In Major League Baseball, the White Sox 7, the Royals 1. The Cubs will be playing the Cardinals today. And the Twins will be here in Chicago tonight. Yay, what a fantastic series it will be. And we'll be waiting for the launch of Artemis 1 rocket. Of course, Artemis is the twin sister of Apollo. We hope that all goes well. President Biden gave a magnificent speech last night outside Independence Hall. He delivered his sharpest rebuke yet of Republicans during his speech in Philadelphia on Thursday, warning that former President Donald Trump and his closest followers are trying to undermine American democracy. Quote, "As I stand here tonight, equality and democracy are under assault," he said in his address. Do you agree with that? Call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. Still praying for our brothers and sisters down in Jackson, Mississippi. They still do not have drinkable water. They've had infrastructure issues for years. We've got to talk about that next week on the Santita Jackson Show. For the first time in 25 years, the month of August did not have a named storm. But now that September has arrived, things appear to have changed quickly in the tropical Atlantic. On Thursday, the National Hurricane Center announced that Tropical Storm Danielle, currently in the North Atlantic, is expected to strengthen into a hurricane by Saturday. Danielle is not a threat to any land at this time, but we will have to see. Former President Trump said he will very, very seriously, his words, consider full pardons for the rioters who breached the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, if he runs for re-election and wins. Quote, "If I decide to run and if I win, I will be looking very, very strongly about pardons," he said. Full pardons, close quote. What do you think about that? 773-763-9278. The California legislature passed about a dozen bills this week protecting or expanding abortion access in the state as its Democratic leaders seek to make California a safe haven for reproductive freedom. It is something that is, quite frankly, we don't know where people can go to have full reproductive rights services, everybody. Corrupt as hell, that's how I'm putting it. Demands for Clarence Thomas to resign following new details of his wife's election scheming. Indeed, she pressed Wisconsin lawmakers to overturn the Biden 2020 victory, according to this Washington Post report. He faces fresh calls to step down, and what do you think about that? 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCP2. This is WCPT. This is where facts matter, everybody. And so green youths are ripping dangerous and dumb $1.4 billion bailout of a California nuclear plant. That's right. California lawmakers voted to keep the state's last remaining nuclear power plant open for 5 more years, in part by lending its operator, PG&E, $1.4 billion. If you want to know where our corporate money, where corporations get their money from, now you know. Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams, how you doing today? Okay, we got to bring Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams up. Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams? Ooh, perhaps she is on mute. Well, of course, she's going to bring us the good news. Paul, let's just make sure that Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams is there because we want to get the good news from her. But I want to hear from you, everybody. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Let me know what your thoughts are about President Biden's. Oh, okay, I'm disconnected. Okay, well, hold on. then you all should call me and let me know that I'm disconnected. Okay. All right. Am I reconnected, Paul? Okay, I guess I am. Let's bring up Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams. How you doing, Pastor Williams? Okay, well, let me check and see if I'm reconnected, because all indications are that I am. So everybody stay right here, 773-763-9278. Live radio, what can I tell you? Hold on, everybody. Stay right there so I can find out what is going on here with the connection on the Santita Jackson Show. How about that?
I've got Reverend Williams.
Okay, thank you. Next time, just give me a call and let me know that I'm disconnected, because I'm not hugging these texts the way that I can, because I have no idea unless you get in my ear, or and not in my ear there, but certainly in my ear on the phone. Thank you, Paul Chavari. Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams, how you doing today?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you?
Great. I need you to bring up just a bit, Paul, so that we can all hear her, so that I can certainly hear her clearly. It's wonderful to hear you all. I want you all to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763. WCPT. Girl, I need some good news today. I really, really do.
Well, don't we all? Thank you as always for having me. Good morning to everyone. So, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but fall is coming. I don't know about you, but I'm holding on to the last dregs of summer for all it's worth. I'm not quite ready. While I love fall fashion, I'm not quite ready for sweaters and boots just yet. And I would imagine that most of us feel that way. But if I can, I'd like to play on fall today, because when we think about fall, we think about losing the joy of the summer. And when we think about falling in life, we think about how sometimes we misstep. Sometimes we physically fall, but other times we fall in projects. We fall down in life. But I want to encourage somebody today that says, yeah, there are times where you're going to fall flat on your face. But what if I were to tell you you can still succeed while you do it? When we talk about falls, basically, mistakes happen. Everyone falls at a certain point in their life. It's unavoidable. It's the steps that you take after you fall that matter and make all the difference between your future successes and failures. And here's the deal. It all comes down to attitude. You might not realize how important attitude is in life, but a positive attitude gets you extra drive. So even when you fall, even when you misstep, positive attitude allows you at times to just brush it off and come back even stronger with more determination. You realize that all is not said and done, and you can take the situation, reframe it, turn it around, and make it a success no matter what. But a negative attitude has a lesson for us as well. You say to yourself that it's not meant to be, or you simply don't have the talent or the ability to succeed, and that's certainly a valid coping mechanism for dealing with failure, but that's never going to lead you to success. If you want to succeed, you have to adopt a positive attitude and learn from your mistakes. Every once in a while when we fall, whether that's spiritually or physically, we've got to learn to do what my trainer says. Just pop back up. Now, here's the problem I have with that, Santita. In my younger years, I was athletic, and I've sustained several knee injuries. And so when we do floor work and training, he says, okay, pop up, get up strong. And I told him, I said, yeah, no, I don't have the ability to get up strong and just pop up the way I used to. Because if I pop up, my knee might pop out. That's
oh my gosh.
The situation. And maybe that's you today. Maybe today you're saying, Pastor Tish, I have fallen and I don't have the strength to just pop back up. I can't just shake it off. Well, guess what? I want to tell you that that's okay. Sometimes when we fall, sometimes when we stumble, maybe you got to sit there for a minute. Maybe you have to process what just happened. It's not the timing of when you get up, and sometimes it's not how you get up. But I want someone to know today that you will get up. I hope I'm preaching to somebody today for all the hurt that you sustained, for all of the things that you have been through. I want you to know today that you will get up. As the song says, we fall down, but we get up. Whether you have to pop up or whether you process, you will get up. And here's how I know. Now unto him that is able to keep you from falling and to present you faultless before the presence of his glory and exceeding joy. The only wise God, our Savior, be glory, majesty, dominion, and power, both now and evermore. Amen. So if you can't get up on your own, just know that you have a power and a presence stronger than you that's ready to pull you up whenever you're down. And that's the good news.
That piece of that part of your body that's gonna pop. You know, my mother said it years ago. She said, you know, up until you're about 25, you can bounce up the stairs. She said something happens to those knees as you get a little older. It doesn't happen that way, but you get another kind of resilience, quite frankly. And a resilience that you can only get, you know, just by living life. You know, by living. And I want to thank you for that, because I needed to hear that today as I hear things popping in my body. But as my father said, that means you're here.
Exactly. And your body comes with its own soundtrack, right?
Oh my God, pop, pop, pop goes my mind. Or is that Levert? Okay. That is true.
I remember that song.
Well, of course you do. Come on, that's back in the day when we still had some elasticity. Right. That's back in the day. Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams, how can we get your book, I See You, Sis?
Yes, you can go on to Amazon, and it is I See You, Sis, Inspirations from Heroic Women of the Bible, hidden in plain sight, and in order your copy today.
All right, everybody. Sending you much love. I hope that you have a magnificent weekend. I know it's going to be great.
Thank you. Enjoy, everyone.
No, it's going to be something special, everybody. Hope that we're getting ready for a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful weekend. We've got Dr. Shanina Knighton with us today. I'm so glad Dr. Shanina Knighton, registered nurse, PhD, the executive director of Apex News Center for IPC Research, Practice, and Innovation. First of all, how's your great nephew? You know, we're all praying for him.
Good morning, Santita.
Good morning.
So we doing touch and go, but the blessing is that today he turns 3, and so we just can celebrate the fact that he's still us, which is a blessing. But yeah, I'll kind of give a status update today when I go to a free visit.
Okay. Amen to that. Amen to that. Amen to that. Sending you much love and many blessings. You know, of course, we're going into the holiday weekend. Please help us to understand that while we're still in the pandemic, and we are still in it, Dr. Knighton, we're still in this pandemic. What do you want us to know, as many of us are going to go to barbecues, we're going to be indoors, outdoors, doesn't even matter. We're going to be in close proximity to people. And we're going to be in close proximity to people we know and love. And I want to know, how should we conduct ourselves in this pandemic that, you know, that's still here, but we're acting like everything's been relaxed. When they wanted us to stay home, they had one message, but when they wanted us to get out and start the economy, we're getting something totally different. Talk to me. What do you think we need to be doing this weekend?
It definitely comes down to being the CEO of your own health. So it's understanding that, yes, while agendas, and when I'm saying agendas, meaning like the reasons for cutting things back, we may not understand, but the one thing we can assure is that people are given the tools to understand what safety looks like. And at this point, it's being the CEO of your own health in infection prevention and control, and saying, what do I need to be doing to make sure that I'm safe as a person? 1 second. I keep opening and closing the door and all of that side doors. Okay. So I'm bringing that up just to say that, at this point, you have the tools and this understanding, and you can know your levels if you want their journal. And I think that's like the one question that we have to ask ourselves. Many of us are getting back to work, our kids are getting back to school, and so the question is can we really afford to be sick? And I think many of us would say we don't want to be sick. and ain't about affording to be sick. It's about wanting to be sick. And so in order for us to do that, we have to think about what we're doing this weekend as we're out engaging with our loved ones. Mainly, are we covering over food still? We're still finding, people that got real relaxed and they want to talk over food again. People in terms of like just space. So when I say space, people don't have boundaries, or they stop giving boundaries in regards to safety. And so when you look up at those things, you say to yourself, hey, I know I love you, I know you love me, however, this is not safe that you're this close to me right now, and I don't know your status. Or cousin JoJo just came from out of town. We know how increased COVID is with people traveling, not because traveling gives you COVID, but just because there's a lot going on, right? Mm-hmm. So you ask them, you say like, hey, I don't know your status as of just yet, and you don't know your status as of just yet. So with that being said, it's like you want to make sure that like safety prevails.
So if we're at a picnic or if we're indoors, say it rains and people move the food indoors, how should the food be served? And I mean, how can you just, not even how can you just very gently speak to a relative or if someone who's to you very close, how should the food be served?
The food, for one, and I was going to say there should be hand hygiene tables set up everywhere. That's what it comes down to. It should be hand hygiene stations set up every single place. And when I say that, that means that if there's near food, if there's near games, if there's near dessert, there should be hand sanitizer so prevalent, and even probably a reminder of signs. Because I even say people's relatives that will lick their fingers like, ooh, this looks good, and they still grabbing phones and doing all kinds of craziness. Mm-hmm. And y'all know I'm not telling a story about that because in my mind, I'm like, why is that even still a social thing, right? And why haven't we gone past that? But it does. You have to assume that, like, everybody's hands are not clean as they're touching the handles of the food that everyone is going to serve. The other piece of it is people haven't normalized, like, not talking over food. Mm-hmm. And as a result of them talking over food, it's like, yeah, there's more than one illness outside of COVID. Like, now COVID does not have a great way of transferring and warm food, but imagine if some droplets get on the salad. That salad, just in the raw form of droplets, is going to go right into your mouth. You have to just be conscious of like what it is that we're doing. And I think that is the number one thing that we've been stressing. As I mentioned, these are all risk-lowering measures, meaning that nothing is guaranteed, but it's a risk-lowering measure. If your food is being served at waist height, that provides people ample opportunity to talk over their food, opposed to if it's a little bit higher than the waist and someone can step back a little bit. We understand everyone can't afford food shields. So maybe an alternative is having a few people serve the food with masks on and have an individual step back from the table. And I see many protocols where people have asked people to be back 3 feet away from the table and to tell them what they want so they can look in over on the food, but they can't talk over the food while they're telling somebody what they want. So I've had events where I have given infection prevention and control recommendations, and I've told people, fellowship, we're not going to fellowship while we're collecting our food. I said, but you can play and tell me what you want. So that's just one measure, but it's many things that we can be doing, but first and foremost, I'm going to continue to emphasize hand hygiene is the single most important way to prevent the spread of infections. It is your first line of defense when you are talking about transmission. Just like any other human, but unlike any other animal, we use our hands for everything.
Everything. And you know what? Wear the mask while you're serving food, please. What about gloves, Dr. Knighton? And should there just be one person serving the food? And I'm asking you a lot about that, man, I'm a foodie. But we're going to be in places where people are going to be serving food this weekend, casually.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I'm going to continue to emphasize. Gloves only good as hand hygiene is in between. So if it's somebody that's wearing those gloves, touching their phone, their hair, their cell phone, and touching your food handles, touching dirty plates, clean plates, them gloves are contaminated and they're nasty. So somebody wearing gloves does not make me feel more secure.
I want you and your beautiful family to have a wonderful Labor Day weekend. Beautiful, beautiful family. And we are praying for your great nephew, sending all of you, sending your whole family much love and many blessings. God is a healer. God can do anything but fail. We just thank God in advance for the healing. We do. And learn the lessons that you and all of us are supposed to learn from your sharing this moment with us. We love you. We love you. We love you. Everybody, let's talk about politics 2024. That's right, in 2022, Afghanistan. Let's talk about it with Plight going in just a minute. Thank you, Dr. Knighton. Thank you, Dr. Knighton. Paul? Oh, no worries. Paul? Oh, well. Yes. Just next time, just give me a call because I'm not looking at my text per se. Okay. Because that's like an emergency, and I'll know I don't mind the phone ringing because I'm not on the air anyway. That's the irony of that. So just call me. That's the alert for me. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, Dr. Knighton, but you're doing okay otherwise?
I am. I'm absolutely doing okay. Just gonna get the baby some a couple of balloons and just go wish him a happy birthday with a little vegan cupcake that he probably won't touch. But it's just that, entertainment, so that's where it'll be for his birthday.
Absolutely. What did you say? A vegan cupcake that he won't touch? Yes. And the problem is, first of all, you can't tell the baby it's vegan. Just say cupcake.
Well, you actually. Well, I ain't gonna lie, with all this inflammation going on, last time you wanted some dairy, right? So I ain't even trying to give him no dairy.
Ooh-wee. I hear you. Ooh. Well, I'm busy trying to get my iron and all of these other things together. Ooh, it's a lot. I'm getting IV infusions of iron because my hemoglobin count was below 6. Yeah, that's not good. Yep. Well, I was supposed to be on, I'd never been put on a prescription iron, which I should have been 18 years ago when I had surgery, because, anemia has been an issue. And so now we know. How about that? And that's a good thing.
Right, yeah,
now we know. So.
Yeah, but at least the biggest thing is recognizing, right?
Oh, go please. And working on it. How about that? Not only have I recognized it, your girl is working on it. How about that? Yes. I'm going to be healthful and well. We're looking at all these papers here. There's so much stuff going on. But, I'm going to have a couple of days away from all of this. And that is what is a blessing, because I need it. At some point, you kind of get a little burned out. And plus, I want to get a lot of things together around my home, which I need to do. And there's that. So, everybody call me at 773. Excuse me? Ms. Wells, what about Mr. Green?
You can't get a hold of him, but I'm trying again.
Okay, just continue. Let me know whether you can get a hold of him or not, because then I can always keep Ms. Wells on, okay? I just need to know that. Okay. So now I am back. Well, James Hurts, I think you might have a point. That having been said, I hope that you will participate in the conversation in a constructive way, not just a provocative way. That's the only way we're going to get through this. Many people are not as far apart from each other as we might think. But we have to first agree to be respectful toward one another, even as we disagree.
Coming back in 10 seconds.
Even as we disagree. You will be surprised sometimes as you continue to talk to people, you have much more in common with them than you do.
Change the world, change the world, change the world. can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world. I am green.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. We want to know what you think about President Biden's speech last night. Call me at 773-763-9278. Do you think it made a difference? It's important for us to understand the political volatility that always accompanies economic hardship. No matter what the corporate media are saying, people are living through really, really tough economic times. And when the money gets funny, so does all the rest of the honey. So think about that, everybody. Call me at 773-763-9278. You had socialists and communists and people all over the spectrum who were very active in American life in the 20s and 30s, in the Gilded Age, which we're living through again. You had the equivalent of lots and lots of billionaires, when you had an American oligarchy and an entrenched American, not even middle class, but an entrenched working class, poor class of people. Got to talk about that, everybody, because that's kind of what we're living through. Not kind of, it's what we're living through once again. If you're not aware of history, you don't understand how it continues to repeat itself. What we're going through is not unique in our history, but we are at an inflection point. And so I want to know if you saw the speech, if you felt that it was important for you to watch, and what you thought about it. But first, we have got, oh my gosh, I'm going to get my beans and my sausage and my mac and cheese and my chicken. Oh, I just wish you would make it oxtails this weekend, but I'm so glad that I'm getting what I'm getting from Chappelle, my girl. Celebrations by us. How you doing, Chappelle?
I'm great, Santita. I am up, and getting these orders ready for the weekend. We have a couple of orders for our ribs and our jerk chicken and our mac and cheese. So we are up and about and getting to the store and preparing some of these things today for this weekend. But give us a call at 708-526-4546. 708-526-4546. We also do custom balloon arches as well as custom street tables, custom treats, as well as all of your decor. So please give us a call at 708-526-4546 so that way we can serve all of your party needs. Thank you so much, Santita.
Oh, I cannot wait to get my food this weekend. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. I don't know what to do. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. I'm take some beans over to my nephews because they love beans too, and I know they're going to love yours. So it's going to be great. I already told them about them. Well, I think one doesn't. Several of them do not have their front teeth. So, they're happy to get their soft teeth.
Yeah, awesome.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. Sending you much love, everybody. Celebrations by us, 708-526-4546. My friend Andre, who's up on one of our Morning Stars, said, wait a minute, he called me yesterday. He said, wait a minute, do you think, can I get another order from him? Like, right now, because you made those oxtails sound so great. I said, everything's great. I love you, Chappelle. Wait a minute, just very quickly, did you hear the president's speech last night? You are so tuned into politics.
I am, but I did not hear it, ironically, But I know he ain't talking about nothing, so I'm not even what he's talking about.
Chappelle, don't be so harsh.
Did he remember? I mean, the last time I actually paid attention to the president, he was spewing COVID all over everybody. So I ain't listening to that man because I'm not. I mean, it's just like they say what they think they want us to hear, but none of this is going to come to fruition. And I just don't believe none of them because I think they all have their own agendas, and none of it concerns the American people. So I didn't hear it, but I am eager to listen to what you have, because I know that you are going to touch on it and you're going to expand on it, but I may go back and listen today. But
well, I think that you should, because I thought it was a very interesting speech, and its placement, right? Like why was that speech given right now, and what was he talking about? And I think for us too, I'm very, very careful about how we deal with former President Trump and his supporters, because different people have approached supporting him for a lot of different reasons. For us to say that it's just because he's a racist and he hates black people and he hates Hispanic people, that is not true. people grab on to candidates for a whole lot of different reasons. And the same thing has happened with former President Trump. And when you have this kind of economic volatility, you can expect anything. You can expect anything, Chaparral. So, I want you to call back at 7 o'clock because we're going to be talking about Bernie Sanders, because he is the most favorably viewed presidential contender for 2024. People are saying he's in his 80s. Nobody cares about that. You want someone who's going to get up there and do their thing. Okay? I don't want someone who's youthful and slick and trying to make it. I want someone who does not care anymore. And when I say does not care, he's seen it, done it, and all he's doing now is legacy. Bernie Sanders ain't changed.
He would get the job done. He would get us our student loan debt forgiveness. He would give us our money. He would do a lot of things. He would do universal health care. All the things that America needs to be better, he will get it done. And he won't care who's not supporting it. He won't.
And people feel it, and that's what people are voting for. People want that. And people feel that way about former President Trump. I don't care how we feel about him. He's not someone I supported. That having been said, that I understand how people are feeling. And so we need to stop diminishing each other and demonizing each other about whom we support. It's not right. I don't care who it is that you support. I don't care. Don't do that. Let's start listening to each other. Let's start being respectful to each other. Really. Let's do that. Then we can get somewhere. But call back at 7 o'clock, and I can't wait for you to jump on that, because this poll shows him at the top. He's more popular than Trump, than Biden. But they dare not mention it. Ain't that nothing? Everybody, let's talk about Bryce.
I will.
Oh, and I know you will. You won't be able to wait. Of course, we got Bryce Green, brilliant writer from Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. It's the first anniversary of the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Now, we're holding on to their money. The people in Afghanistan, many of them are starving. They need their money, but America's holding on to it. There's just a lot going on. So, I want to know what your thoughts are. You have you're participating in a piece on NPR as we tease out what's happening in Afghanistan. Welcome back to the show, Bryce Green.
Thank you for having me on, Santita.
Talk to me. What's going on with you and NPR? Our competitors.
All right. So, as you said, that the U.S. has taken a lot of Afghan funds. The funds from the Central Reserve Bank were stolen by the United States after the U.S. withdrawal. And the U.S. has said that they did to keep the money from the Taliban. But the problem is that the central bank needs this money so it can, perform its central bank functions, so it can pay salaries of public employees, teachers, and they need to get their economy off the ground. But the U.S. doesn't want this to happen. They give a little bit of money in aid, but as human rights NGOs, they have repeatedly pointed out that that's not enough. That there is no substitute for getting the economy back up and running. And so what I was looking at was how much did NPR cover the hunger crisis? Because as the Afghan economy deteriorated and continues to deteriorate, millions and millions of people are thrown into food insecurity, acute hunger, and even starvation. These are millions of people. 90% of the entire country doesn't have enough to eat. 70% of 40 million people.
90%?
You would think that this would be a major story. I mean, you hear reporting every now and then. We learned that Afghans, some of them were even boiling grass to eat. It's that dire there. And so I was just wondering, how much did NPR cover this? Because they had a whole series about Afghanistan for the last 2-3 weeks. And in that time, I counted, there was only 30 seconds of coverage about the humanitarian crisis. 30 seconds out of something like 2 hours. And so why? Why did NPR choose to, cover stories about, what happened to those brave Marines at the Kabul airport? What happened to all the women who no longer are able to go to school. Now, these are all important topics, but I mean, the hunger crisis should take precedence. I mean, I said a while ago, for every story about how Afghan girls are not able to go to school, there should also be a story about how the U.S. is trying to starve those same girls, and along with the entire country. But we don't see that coverage. It's pretty dramatic.
I want to get the bright lines of what you just said. 90% of 40 million people are starving.
Well, they don't have enough to eat. About half of those people are facing what's called acute hunger. And there are lower numbers of people who are actually experiencing a famine right now. And, Human Rights Watch, Red Cross, they've all said that this is going to get worse unless you can get the Afghan economy off the ground. And the only way to do that is by returning those central bank funds that the U.S. stole.
When you say the U.S. stole that money, what do you mean?
Right. So the Afghan government, the U.S.-backed one, before the Taliban overthrow, they had something like $9 billion reserves, $9 billion in foreign reserve currency. So this is money held in foreign banks. $7 billion of that was held in New York City. And when the U.S. withdrew and the Taliban took over Kabul, the U.S. decided to freeze those funds. They decided to say, no, the Taliban does not have access to these funds because we didn't want their country to succeed. We didn't want the new Taliban government to have any access to money. We wanted to control them. And initially, this was described as sort of a leverage point, right? People said that, well, we want the new government to be inclusive. We wanted to reflect the newfound values that Americans want to impose. And so they kept this money saying, okay, we'll give it back to you if we decide that you're doing a good job. In the meantime, they took half of this money, and in a pretty crass move, in my opinion, they are trying to give half of it, $3.5 billion, to families of victims of 9/11. There was a lawsuit against Afghanistan, against the Taliban, and the Biden administration is trying to use $3.5 billion of those stolen reserves to pay off 9/11 victims' families.
Why?
Why? Well, that's a big question, right? For years, ever since 9/11, the Afghan people have really suffered as a result of it. And of course, the Afghan people had nothing to do with 9/11. So it's a sort of a sick revenge tactic, using stolen money to pay the victims, the families of the victims of 9/11. And they said they're using the other half to, funnel aid into Afghanistan, humanitarian aid, which is good. But as I said, humanitarian organizations were clear that is not enough, that there is no substitute for rebuilding the economy. Now, incidentally, a significant chunk of 9/11 families have come out in opposition to this move. They said that we don't want the Afghans to suffer in our name again, right? I mean, 20 years of suffering was done in the name of 9/11 because the U.S., invaded the country under the pretext that they were going to help the Afghan people. They were going to fight terrorism. And it was sold to the American people as a revenge fantasy. But the Afghan people have suffered, even though they had nothing to do with the attacks. So it's all around a pretty terrible situation. There is a movement. You probably haven't heard about it, but there is a movement to get the Afghans their money back. And you see it pop up in the mainstream press every so often. Earlier this year, the New York Times editorial board had a piece called "Let the Afghans Have Their Money." But this really hasn't permeated through to the drumbeat coverage. And when the anniversary of the withdrawal came, note that it came right after Biden's claimed assassination of Ayman al-Zawahiri, who was second in command of al-Qaeda. And so all of this focused a lot of attention on Afghanistan. And if NPR actually cared about the Afghan people, they would have used this time to focus on what the U.S. could do to help the starving Afghan people. Instead, they chose to mostly demonize the Taliban. They mostly just reminisced about those scary moments before Kabul fell. These are all interesting stories, but the elephant in the room is that the U.S. is deliberately starving millions of people. And they didn't cover that. They covered it for 30 seconds. In 2 weeks.
It's
interesting. What does that tell you about where their heads are? What does that tell you about what their values are?
Well, and what does it tell you about the people they're interviewing, Bryce, right? When we look at corporate media and when we listen to NPR, which is not free and open radio, it's not. And I love NPR, but I'm clear everybody's got a paymaster, and that's what it is. That's why you try to fight for your independence. You do as much as you can. I'm always intrigued by the people who are interviewed, the indigenous people in any community who are interviewed, because most of the time they're connected to the United States or to some great Western power, right? So I think typically, I think that we need to, let's say we just found this person. I'm like, how'd you find them? They were teaching at university.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, where did they do their undergraduate and graduate work? Here, England, something like that. So, what role is the corporate media? What role do they have? Because this is what fairness and accuracy in reporting does. You really track reporting so that you can find out how fair and accurate they are. Talk to me. How are they shaping, as they shape this narrative, what's off about how they're shaping it? How true is it? How untrue is it?
Right. Well, most of the Afghan coverage you see today, a lot of it focuses on how bad the Taliban are and how much worse life is for some people under Taliban rule. They'll concede that, yes, sure, people aren't getting blown up anymore since the war is actually over, that there are far fewer war deaths over the past year than there were in the last 20 years. That's an important development. But typically the image that is presented of Afghanistan in the corporate media is just a disaster zone. But the main problem is that those disastrous conditions are completely divorced from any action that the U.S. has taken, right? So we say, oh, the Afghan people are in trouble. The Afghan people have it so bad. But we leave out the fact that the U.S. is deliberately making it worse. And if we ignore that fact, well, then really we're listening to propaganda meant for children. If we can't face up to the fact that we have an effect on these people's lives, then what is the point of even covering them, if not to just demonize the enemy? And so it really serves to manufacture consent for any American policy, right? At the start of the Afghanistan invasion, there was a lot of coverage about the plight of Afghan women. Now, this is a very important story. Afghan women have it extremely rough. Mm-hmm. But it's not like the U.S. cares about the Afghan women. It's not like the U.S. wants to do anything to make their lives better. It's that they're being used as a prop to paint the Taliban in a bad light. And if we paint the Taliban in a bad light, well, that legitimizes any policy the U.S. would have against the Taliban. And so the coverage serves to manufacture consent for U.S. foreign policy, no matter how brutal, no matter how murderous, no matter how many people have to starve. And so serious coverage from people who actually care about the people of Afghanistan, who recognize the role that the U.S. public has in shaping policy, who recognize the role of the U.S. government in making things worse. Serious coverage would focus on that, would focus on the ways that the United States can change the situation. Divorcing that from coverage is pretty irresponsible, and it's pretty disappointing that NPR did that.
Well, I want you to answer Mr. Burns. Thank you so much for chiming in with us on the Morning Stars, Mr. Burns. He says, wait a minute. The war went to a level that it had to go to protect the American people from forces who are behind terrorism. What is your response to that?
Well, that's not true. In fact, one of the piece I wrote a couple weeks ago about NPR's coverage of Afghanistan, it was about the first segment in their series. And initially, Steve Inskeep, the lauded NPR host, he was meeting with the son of the Taliban leader. And he said that this is the Taliban leader who refused to hand over bin Laden after 9/11. And that's why the U.S. invaded. Now, this is a gross distortion of the facts. If you look at what was actually reported at the time, the Taliban actually had a very contentious relationship with al-Qaeda. In fact, even before 9/11, the Taliban were willing to hand over bin Laden to a third country. They were asking for evidence of U.S. accusations against bin Laden. And they said that they were willing to put him on trial. They were looking for every opportunity to get rid of him. But the U.S. refused. They ignored the Taliban offers. They received the offers. They acknowledged that they received the offers. They said they were going to ignore them. And so after 9/11, the Taliban, they reiterated their offers. They said the same thing. They said, okay, you know what, just show us evidence that bin Laden was involved in this. And, we'll give him up to a third country or we'll put him on trial here. The U.S. said, absolutely not. We're not going to give you any evidence. It was reported later that they didn't have any evidence at the time. But we're not going to get evidence. We want you to hand over bin Laden, answer all of our demands, no negotiation. Well, what does that mean? It means that the U.S. was going to invade. It means that the U.S. invasion had nothing to do with bin Laden. I mean, even after the bombs started falling on Afghanistan in October of 2001, the Taliban reiterated again. They said, we are willing to hand over bin Laden. And this time, they dropped the requirement that they even be given evidence. They said, stop the bombing, we'll give bin Laden over. And the U.S. refused again. They kept bombing, and then weeks later, the Taliban were out of power. So the war in Afghanistan really was not about protecting Americans from terrorism. If it was, well, why didn't they accept the offer to get bin Laden? Why didn't they accept the Taliban overture? Because you have to look deeper at what U.S. policy was, at why the U.S. policymakers did what they did. And they sold it to the American people by saying, oh, we're fighting terrorism. We got to protect the American homeland. But I mean, that's, again, propaganda meant for children. That is not the case. If the U.S. wanted to, make the world safer, if the U.S. wanted to stop international terrorism, the first thing that they would do is to stop participating in it. And it's to stop encouraging it. I mean, even a 12-year-old could tell you what happens if you bomb a country and destroy it. The people don't like you. And so, I mean, ask yourself this. Does that encourage terrorism or does that discourage terrorism? I think the answer is pretty clear. And from that, you can really get a clear view about what the Bush administration's policy was and what the Obama administration continued. The troop surge of Afghanistan was mainly under Obama. So the idea that we were fighting terrorism it's really just a justification for imperial policies. And you'll probably see that all the time throughout history, and you'll see it again in the future.
Americans would be loath to believe that we are propagandized, but surely we are. I mean, we were propagandized to hate Dr. King. I mean, and I bring up Dr. King a lot, not only because my father worked for him and my mother did too, but that's in our not too distant history. It's in our modern history when we have seen this before. On a dime, the corporate media can turn a zero into a hero and a hero into a zero. In 2016, the demon was Hillary Clinton. In 2020, the demon was Donald Trump. It just changes all the time. All the time. James Comey, the head of the FBI, 10 days before the election, he tilted the scales. He said that there's a specter of criminality over Hillary Clinton's head. And this is coming from the FBI. Are you serious? I've got 1 minute here. What do you want us to know as we're looking at this Afghanistan coverage? 1 minute.
1 minute. Well, you should know that the U.S. government is intentionally starving Afghans. The U.S. government is intentionally withholding the funds, and they know for a fact that this is causing the economy to collapse, and they know that this is causing hunger. They know that this is causing poverty, and yet they're doing it anyway. And when they do it, they'll say that, we just want to make sure that Afghanistan is more inclusive. We just want to make Afghanistan safe for various minority groups. But I know that they do not care about those minority groups. They don't care about any human being on the planet. And so it just takes a little bit of thought to bust through that propaganda narrative. It just takes a little bit of following the facts. Does this statement make sense? Does it hold up against the evidence? And quite often the answer is absolutely not.
Bryce Green, everybody, please go to Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, some of the most brilliant reporting and analysis that exists in all of journalism. This young man is doing it so beautifully. Happy Labor Day. Stay right there, Bryce. I want to talk with you during the break. Everybody, let's talk about the Warnock Walker race down in Georgia. What's going on there? A lot of back and forth. A lot of dark money is trying to smear Raphael Warnock. How should he respond? And what about Bernie Sanders, the most likable candidate in 2024, more likable than Trump, Biden, everybody else? Why aren't we hearing about it? Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Hold on one second, Bryce. Paul, are we having some trouble with the phones? Because I'm getting a lot of messages. People are trying to call, but they're saying the phone is just ringing. And that's been happening all week.
I don't know.
Okay, are the lines open?
Yes.
Okay, because they're trying to call, and that's what they're sending me messages. So I don't know what's going on. I'll speak with Matt so that he can address it, because it happens. It's been happening all week. They have been saying that. So anyway, but let me speak with Bryce very quickly so that I can let him go. Unless you want to weigh in on this, we're going to be talking about the Warnock Walker race. Oh my word! And then,
now, unfortunately, I have to go to class.
Bless your heart.
Yeah.
But you know what? I can't wait to talk with you again. I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to it. And just keep up the great work. But I'm going to reach out to you so you can come back on next week. I'd love to have you on, more regularly.
Oh, definitely. And I'm going to try and actually make it up to Chicago here in the next couple months. I haven't been back there in a while. We can grab some lunch, grab some Chicago lunch.
Come on, we're going to do that. And it won't be a hot dog. How about that?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
okay,
ma'am.
Won't be a hot dog. I love Chicago, but we ain't doing that. Oh, absolutely. But I'm looking forward to that because you're just in Indiana. So, you're in school too. So there's that,
Yeah. And responsibilities,
No, yeah, exactly.
Come first.
So bless your heart. So, but I'm looking forward to having you come to Chicago. It's going to be fun. And, I'll take you through the Push building and all of that. It'll be great. We'll make a day of it.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm looking forward to that. Oh, boy. Okay.
All right, well, I will see you later.
Oh, well, sending you much love. Sending you much love. And happy Labor Day.
Take it easy. Oh, happy Labor Day.
Absolutely. Hey, everybody, call me at 773-763-9278. I tried to chase that up the tree for you, Laura, because, all week, many of you have been trying to call in, and you've been saying that the phone's been ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing. I don't know what the deal is. Sometimes when I have more guests on, we don't have the lines open, but even with the guests that we have, you'll have a couple of lines open, and you all are saying that you can't get through. So I'm going to ask the manager of the station what's going on. Okay. So, so everybody, and Pet Granny, love you. You said I quit supporting listening to NPR when they refused to say Dennis Kucinich's name when he ran for president. Hello. And Dennis was my guy. I was on my way to Iowa to campaign for him. Yes, I was in 2008. That's where I was. I was with Dennis. Because in the primaries you support the person you really, really, really want to support. And then, at the convention, if your person does not win, then you jump behind the candidate if you are so inclined, the nominee of the party. If you are so inclined, if you can wrap your arms around their candidacy. But Dennis Kucinich for me was my dream candidate in 2008. Period. That's it. That's all. And he was treated horribly. Of course. I remember Bill Cosby did a wonderful endorsement of Reverend. He and his wife supported Reverend and Mrs. Jackson in 84 and 88. They were the staunchest and earliest of supporters when it was most unpopular to support Reverend Jackson's campaign. They absolutely did it. Pushed him to run. And he did this campaign endorsement on the set of the Cosby Show, and he said something that struck me. He said, "You know, we vote every 2 years, every 4 years, and we get an opportunity to vote, and it's a great thing." He said, "But you know, you vote for people you either don't know, you don't really like, people you don't really believe in." He said, "But now today you have another choice. You have someone you know, you like, you love, who's going to fight for you, someone we know." He said, "Vote for Jesse Jackson. Vote for him." I love Cosby. Love it. Lovely. Love it. Love him. Love him. Love him. I have all the Cosby shows. Love it. Love it. Love it. And actually, I went to a few of their, the tapings. Oh my gosh, they were electrifying. Okay, it sounds a little distorted, Max. Okay, let me see. Let me see, because people are saying that. Max, how is it sounding now? Let me know. How does it sound now, Max? Okay, let me see. See, y'all help me out a whole lot, and I appreciate my morning stars who want to make this thing right. Sounds a little distorted to me, too. Here. Okay. But you all are, Jewel, you all are the best backup team. You're just the best. Hey, Renee. Renee, I wish you would call in. Oh, yeah. My father was so nervous about being on a different world, Renee.
We're back in 1 minute.
Thank you so much. Who do we have up?
Fancher, Connolly, and McKee.
Okay. And we're missing someone, yes?
Jones.
Okay. All right. Let me know when you get him on, okay? Thank you very much. Hey, Aaron, how you doing? Aaron? Aaron Connolly. Dwight McKee? Okay. They're not responding to me. Oh, I cannot hear them. Hello, Aaron? Aaron?
Good morning.
Okay, very good. Were you on mute?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Dwight McKee?
Morning.
Very good. Attorney Fancher. Okay, great.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Okay, great.
Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show, the second hour, Friday, September 2nd, 2022. Happy Labor Day weekend. Our love to all and our appreciation for the service of every worker in every sphere. We thank God for you. And we're going to continue to fight, not just the American worker, but all workers to get their fair share of wages. They should have prosperity wages so that you can do what was done 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago in Detroit, when you could actually get a middle class life. You could buy a home. You could send your children to college. That was a very different time. So we, part of that labor fight is having a prosperity wage. It's really, really appreciating people who work and people who want to work. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. This is Santita Jackson. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Let us talk about President Biden's speech. Let us talk about Raphael Warnock in Georgia. He and Herschel Walker are a little too close for comfort, if you want to know my personal opinion. How can they be this close? Well, if you see some of these ads that Herschel Walker's people have unleashed on Raphael Warnock, you'd kind of get it. Even though the people who are behind Herschel Walker just want Raphael Warnock out, and they want someone they can control. How about that? So, and then, of course, there is this poll that shows that the highest favorability rating of all presidential contenders for 2024, it's not former President Trump. No, It's not President Biden. No, it's Bernie Sanders. That's what we're hearing. If you look at the morning, you try to find the store, can't find it. Keep that in mind. That's why I keep all my papers, and my place is looking kind of crazy now, so I'm trying to work that out. But that's something for us to look at. We're going to look at that. And why is this octogenarian, this man in his 80s, why is he revered so in American political life? Why do we want him to run and become president and do his thing? I'm just saying. I want to know what your thoughts are. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Chicago, 85 degrees, cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 88 degrees, partly cloudy. The Dow closed up 145 points. The NASDAQ closed down 31 points yesterday. The S&P 500 closed up 11 points. In Major League Baseball, the White Sox last night, 7, and the Royals 1. The Cubs will be playing the Cardinals tonight, and today the Twins will be facing off right here in Chicago, facing off against the White Sox. Yay. Waiting for this launching of Artemis 1, everybody. Artemis 1. Who's Artemis? Artemis is the twin sister of Apollo, and that is this new phase of space exploration coming from the United States of America, going to the moon, headed to Mars. Well, we're going to have this rocket that is going to blast off hopefully tomorrow after the first attempt was scrubbed on Monday due to a range of problems. If they've been able to work out the problems, we'll have a launch tomorrow, a successful launch. President Biden delivered his sharpest rebuke of Republicans during a speech in Philadelphia yesterday, last night, prime time, warning that former President Donald Trump and his closest followers are trying to undermine American democracy. Quote, he said, as I stand here tonight, equality and democracy are under assault, close quote. He said this just months ahead of the midterm elections that will determine control of Congress. And he said that as his poll numbers are rising, as he has had significant legislative success over the past few weeks. For the first time in 25 years, the month of August did not have a named storm, but now that September arrived, that has changed. We now have Tropical Storm Danielle, and we still have a problem in Jackson, Mississippi, everybody. All of that flooding has knocked out their power plant. The people of Jackson, Mississippi, the capital of Mississippi, where they still celebrate Confederate Heritage Month, thank you, due to Governor Tate Reeves. Well, they do not have drinkable water. They do not have water in which they could bathe. More than 150,000 people, up to 180,000 people, are struggling today. What does that say? What does that say, everybody? Praying for the people of Jackson. Praying for the people of Jackson. The California legislature passed about a dozen bills this week protecting or expanding abortion access in the state as its Democratic leaders seek to make California a safe haven state. What do you think about that? 773-763-9278. They're calling this corrupt as hell. That's what many progressive activists are saying of Clarence Thomas, says there are renewed calls for him to resign. There's a Washington Post report that shows that his wife, veteran conservative activist Virginia Thomas, pressed Wisconsin lawmakers to overturn President Biden's 2020 victory. According to this Washington Post report, she pressed lawmakers to overturn Joe Biden's 2020 victory, not only in Arizona, as previously reported, but also in Wisconsin, according to emails obtained under state public records law. The Washington Post reported this year that Jenny Thomas emailed 29 Arizona state lawmakers, some of them twice in November and December of 2020. She urged them to set aside Biden's popular vote victory and to, quote, choose their own, close quote, presidential electors, despite the fact that the responsibility for choosing electors rests with voters under Arizona state law. What do you think should happen, everybody? What do you think should happen? People are saying that Clarence Thomas needs to resign. What do you think? Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. And guess who's getting a bailout to the tune of $1.4 billion? PG&E. That's right. Green groups in California on yesterday led the condemnation of a vote by California lawmakers to keep the state's last remaining nuclear power plant open for 5 more years. in part by lending, the government lending its operator, the criminal operation. That is those in terms of common dreams. PG&E, they've had a lot of problems, everybody. So what do you think? You know, we're looking at financial freedom, and that is what we need. That is what we need more than anything. And I tell you what, if you don't have good credit, if you need to build or rebuild your credit, if you've had a bankruptcy, if you have high credit card debt, if you cannot get a credit card, because if you're using that debit card, you really need to stop, because you need to get a credit card, but you might not have the credit in order to make that happen. Well, Team Hochberg can help you to work all of that out. They're going to give you a free consultation. And if you tell them everything, they will find out what your credit rating is, what your payment history is, and they will come up with a plan that will enable you to get a credit card, that will enable you to come up with a plan to save money, to buy a home, and all of that. If you want to get, if you want to refinance your existing home and you've been turned down for loans, they can work that out for you. If you need to secure a VA loan, an FHA loan, if you want to find out about reverse mortgages, call them. Tom and Sonia had $100,000 in credit card debt, everybody. Mortgage and minimum payments on these 17 credit cards that help us $100,000 worth of debt. So they called Team Hochberg for a free consultation, and then Team Hochberg returned to them with a plan. And what they were able to do was secure an FHA loan, pay off their 17 credit cards, and reduce their monthly payments for that over $2,800. That could be you. Don't be ashamed. Everybody's struggling right now. Everybody's juggling this money. So guess what? You don't have to be in this kind of pain, and you don't have to be ashamed. You shouldn't be. Call them at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or go to 56david.com. 56david.com. Financial freedom can be yours. 855-56-DAVID or 56david.com. Everybody, let us talk about election 2022, the midterms, on a dime. My father's often told me that in politics, just close your eyes, open them. Okay, baby, that's a light year. In politics, Aaron Connolly, things change on a dime. Your fortunes change on a dime. Dwight McKee, Aaron Connolly. Attorney Darrell Jones, I hope we've been able to get him, and Attorney Mark Fancher. We're going to be talking about a range of issues with respect to the midterms 2022 going into 2024, because we've got a few things going on. I'm so glad that Attorney Jones has been able to join us, Darrell Jones. We've got the Warnock race. Why is everyone looking at Georgia? Well, you've got Stacey Abrams. She's got this great rematch with the current governor. The current governor who was the Secretary of State when she was running, and who purged hundreds of thousands, if not more than 1 million, of her potential voters. By all rights, she should be governor. She never conceded that race, and I don't think that she should have. That having been said, Raphael Warnock, the heir to the pulpit of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, brilliant pastor, brilliant young man who is now the senator, the junior senator from Georgia. Well, what has happened? Well, he is neck and neck with Herschel Walker, who everyone knows, and it's not a funny thing. When people have mental health issues and when they have been damaged, it's not funny. It's not funny. So I'm not going to laugh about his gaffes. I'm not going to laugh about his clearly troubled personal life. But what's very interesting is that he's been accused of hypocrisy, because his ex-wife came out with an ad in which she accused him of physical abuse, life-threatening physical abuse, and she said, "He is not the person you want to have be your senator." And but she came out with that ad. That was not Raphael Warnock. She came out with that. She's been talking about this for years. But what Raphael Warnock has done is he's exploited the divorce and all of the issues around it of Reverend Dr. Warnock. Now, do you know of a divorce that's pleasant? I don't know of one, not at all. No, we're talking about Bernie Sanders, the most likable presidential candidate in 2024. Why is the corporate media not talking about this? And what is the Democratic establishment going to do with the most popular politician, most popular candidate who they don't want to touch? But let's start with Raphael Warnock. Let me start with you. Attorney Aaron Connolly, got a few minutes before we go to break. What about this? What about Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker and Herschel Walker's personal attacks, Attorney Connolly, personal attacks upon Raphael Warnock?
Well, I think in this race, Raphael Warnock had a battle to get into the Senate in that special election. And we saw similar attacks at that point, right? And I think they're taking a play from that old playbook and seeing what they can drum up with all of the money that is backing this candidate, who, as you mentioned, is unqualified and sounds like has a lack of consistency and character for the role of a U.S. senator. And these attacks on Senator Warnock, I think, are recycled to a point that hopefully, and I'll let other folks who spend more time in Georgia weigh in on this, but I think ultimately these attacks will prove tired, but are a last-ditch effort to take advantage of some of these potentially undecided voters. But I think what we saw this week in Georgia from Stacey Abrams was solid, and hopefully, the Democrats as a slate will have some momentum going into the election.
Attorney Darrell Jones, why have so many eyes upon Georgia? And what about these attacks by Herschel Walker? I mean, he's been called a hypocrite just given his personal problems. And, and like I said, I don't make fun of anyone's personal life because it's not funny. It's not funny. I can only imagine what his ex-wife and other women in his life have been through. But for him to attack this man upon this basis, I mean, he won't even debate him. Attorney Darrell Jones.
Yeah. Good morning, Santita. It's really interesting. You ask why the focus on Georgia, and a large part of it, I think, is this. Number one, the fight in Georgia is the fight that they're relitigating, right? Because the conservatives lost both of the seats in the U.S. Senate race in the 2020-2021 runoff election. And they then implemented all of these things to try to be certain that what they believe to be a very safe seat in Georgia, they'd be able to try to fight to get it back. And if they're able to fight to get back the seats in Georgia, their hope is to be able to regain control of the U.S. Senate. So that's why all the focus is there. It's a fight for the control of the U.S. Senate as it flows through the state of Georgia. Now, interestingly, in politics, they're all fights are real, right? I mean, anything, it's all hands on. So there's no hands off anything. You're there, you're in it, the mudslinging, all of it. People hate, and always talk about negative advertisement, negative campaigning. But on the political side of it, it's effective. It works. It registers with the voters. The voters say, I hate it, but they absorb it. They can't get enough of it. And then they try to make their determinations of who to vote on based on it. So when you run all of that together and you start looking at the Walker and the Warnock ads, it's gotten so bad in Georgia at this point, Santita, that Walker now is running an ad calling Warnock a liar because Warnock said he had a dog. Right? There's a question about whether or not he had a dog. I mean, it's just, incredibly low with regards to the attacks that are going in place. But attack ads in politics are part of the game. It's part of the process. It's part of, what people have come to expect. So, I don't take issue with the attacks that are going on. The question will be trying to reach the voters to get your message out and to be certain to get the positiveness of it out. And clearly, because of many of the things that you've mentioned with regards to Herschel Walker's troubles, typically the candidate that has the most troubles that are being laid out to the public will come out swinging and throw all kinds of ads to try to bring his opponent down and try to take the focus off of them with regards to the negative features that are there. So I think that's a large part of what we're seeing right now in Georgia. The effectiveness, well, it's still a very close race, right? And in Georgia, it's such a conservative state. It was somewhat of a shocker to have to have Warnock come through in that election. Actually, both Democrats there to come through in that election. So you've really got a fight that's going on in the state of Georgia that really is focused on those issues that the Republicans are trying to regain their Georgia back. And that's a large part of the fight that I think we see going on in this race.
Absolutely. And Raphael Warnock, his attack ad is attacking this spray that Herschel Walker touted as being a combatant of COVID-19. However, Herschel Walker has pulled out footage of Raphael Warnock's ex-wife and some, and their troubles. I mean, they're in a battle. I mean, it's just, that's what happens in divorce. It's never pretty, ever, ever, ever. I've not seen one where somebody walked away without a broken heart. It just, it is what it is. Mark Fancher, what do you make of all of this?
Well, generally, electoral politics is one big stinking sewer. Yes. And politicians are strange individuals who willingly and gleefully jump into it and start throwing sewage at each other and enjoy it. So none of this comes as a surprise. But, occasionally there are individuals who jump into it with the hope that they can drain the sewer and sanitize it. And if, Raphael Warnock is one of those people, I mean, he is a man of God, then rather than take his cue from the people who enjoy wallowing in sewage, he will take his cue from what should be his role model, Jesus Christ, who had all kinds of terrible things said about him, all kinds of attacks made against him. And rather than respond in kind, he just continued to spread the good news, continue to stay positive, and continue to outline a vision for the future and to provide guidance as to how human beings can live as decent human beings. And I think that if an individual does that, then they are able to, with great comfort, just sit back and let the voters decide what they want. If they want, a strange, loathsome creature who wallows in sewage and enjoys it, and they vote for him, then they deserve what they get. If they don't win the election, then they're probably better off. Then, it is a Senate seat is a thing of this world, and it is not something to be cherished necessarily in the grand scheme of things. There are higher and better callings than that. And so, I don't like Donald Trump, but I've always said that people get what they deserve. If you vote somebody in, then that's what you deserve. You did it with your eyes wide open.
With your eyes wide open. And I contend I'm with you. There's some things that are not worth winning, Dwight McKee. Like you should not have to lower yourself. That's, we've been having that discussion. I'm like, if I'm going to lose with winning behavior, I'll do that. I'll do that. But it's heartbreaking to see Herschel Walker's people trying to tear this man apart in this way. Dwight McKee, I've got a minute and a half.
Well, I agree with Mark in many ways, but it's really hard to sanitize Warnock with this being his wife making the allegation. And so I think he should have been a little bit vetted. Again, coming out of our conversation yesterday, you're dealing with Donald Trump, who was trained by Roy Cohn, who was a lawyer for the mafia, who was the father of hardball politics, and Roger Stone, who came out of the Nixon dirty trick era. And so you're dealing with, a political apparatus that is going to be the wretched of the earth. Their strategy is to throw dirt. So the least dirt you can give them to throw, the better your chances are. I think what Warnock has to do is, I don't think that he can really justify his relationship with his wife. I think what he has to do is to talk what his loss would do in terms of the general scheme of things and the effect it can have on the everyday lives of the people in Georgia and the country. I think what he has to say is that he really is representing a greater cause, and that cause is the salvation of democracy and a better life, and being able to preserve whatever lifestyle the people have left to salvage.
Absolutely.
And then Republicans are going to put an assault on that if he's not there. And that it's really not about him. It's about the greater cause and trying to really save and protect the people. And let that his good works, whatever he has.
Absolutely. Everybody, I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Let's talk about Bernie Sanders. He's at top the polls, everybody, but no one's talking about that. Back in just a minute. Hey, everybody, when you all hear the music, excuse me, that means I got to get out. So pardon me for stepping over you, Dwight. I had to get out. I had to get out, but thank you so much. But I think that you're right. I think I don't think you win when you get in the gutter with people. I don't think you win. You can't even say in 2022 that Jesse Jackson lost in 1984. Number one, you don't even know you don't remember the nominee from 84 or 88. You don't remember who else won. You don't remember. You remember him. And he kept his campaign right up there. And you're the one who has to make that decision. Remember, if you're willing to pay any price, you will lose everything. Faustian bargains, they don't work. And remember, Mistopheles lost. There's a whole story to that. So call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. What do you all make of this polling? And there's a lot of data behind this polling. Dwight McKeon, Attorney Fancher, and Attorney Jones, and Attorney Aaron Connolly, that kind of help hint at why this man is so popular. Bernie Sanders, who came out the Jackson campaign, and he will tell you that. But it's true, and they and that's what I mean. This campaign just keeps on winning every day. Keeps on winning every day. So what do you all think about so do you think that, if I could just ask you, I've got about a minute left, do you think, or less, do you think that Raphael Warnock is going to win, or do you think it's going to be like a nail biter to the finish? Anyone? Daryl, you're in and out of there.
Yeah, and I was weighing the question. I think it's probably going to be a nail biter to the finish, because you're talking about such a conservative state, and you're trying to overcome that, and you have the star power of Herschel Walker, from the Heisman Trophy and all the other stuff, and that's a large part of what you're overcoming. You're overcoming both his star power, and you're trying to overcome the conservative. I'm going to vote for him because I'm an R and he's an R, and I'm not leaving the party. So that's a lot to overcome. And I understand the substantive argument that's there with regards to, if you look at them substantively, there really is no comparison. But we're talking about the average voter. And I don't think the average voter is going into that, real substantive analysis. They're thinking, this is Herschel Walker. He did all that he did for UGA, and I'm going to stay with him. So, that's why I think it's going to be a nail biter to the end.
Wow, that's... Aaron,
Hi, Miss Jackson. It's Jewel. You have about 30 seconds.
Okay. Hi, Jewel. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? I like your show.
Oh, bless your heart. That is so sweet of you. I really appreciate it. I hope you get something from this.
I definitely will. I just graduated with my bachelor's in social work, but I love radio. So.
Oh my goodness. So do you plan to pursue further study in social work?
Possibly. We'll see. I like both
Fantastic.
fields a lot.
Fantastic. Well, you can do both.
Absolutely.
You can do both.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because
That's my plan eventually.
Yeah, because you need to learn
I'm
how.
real young.
Well, no, but if you were 70, if you were 80, you don't leave until you don't get out of here until you shut your eyes.
Right. We got about 10 seconds.
Fantastic. Wonderful, Miss Andy. It's wonderful hearing your voice.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
More and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. I want you to call me at 773, and you all are already calling Chaparral and Jewel about this very interesting tidbit. Senator Bernie Sanders clocked in with the highest favorability among a list of 23 potential 2024 presidential candidates. According to a new USA Today Ipsos poll, 46% of the respondents said they had at least a somewhat favorable view towards Sanders, while 41% said they had an unfavorable opinion. That put him above President Biden. That put him above Citizen Trump, former President Trump. That put him above Pence, Vice President Harris, former Vice President Pence, current Vice President Harris, everybody. So what do you think about that? What do you think about that? And why aren't we hearing about it? And what does that mean? What will the Democratic establishment do? What will they do? What will they do? And what to do about Bernie? It seems like that is still an issue because it's hard to find the story, but I'm glad that I did. I found it on thehill.com. And the backdrop, this is among the backdrop, the least popular figure, according to an NBC News poll. The least popular political figure in the United States is Joe Manchin, a Democrat. Think about that. And according to this survey, more Americans than ever rate themselves as suffering, everybody. So growing share of Americans report high levels of daily stress and worry, according to this Gallup poll. Nearly 3/4 of Americans think that the United States is headed in the wrong direction. More than 40% of Americans think that civil war is likely within a decade. I bring up all of those pieces because I think that they are relevant. You know, what we need to know, Dwight McKee, before we get some of these callers in, is our history. We need to know our history, the political volatility that existed in America whenever we have a Gilded Age, whenever we have financial difficulty. Coming out of the Gilded Age of the 20s and 30s, you had communists and socialists and all coming out, running for office, and putting their ideas out because they said America's not working for most Americans. Dwight McKee, what do you make of this news that Sanders has the highest favorability among 2024 contenders, according to this credible poll?
Well, I think two things. I think one is that it makes him, again, a threat to the traditional Democratic Party who makes their living off running politics. And so they're going to sabotage anybody with progressive ideas, and he's going to become a target. And secondly, he has these poll ratings before he has become a target. And the mudslinging is not started yet. And once he really gets out there and gets his momentum, both the Republicans and the Democrats are going to come at him with both guns blazing. And by the time they finish tarnishing him and throwing mud on him, he's going to have the same issue that Warnock has. The issues may not be the same kind of issues, but the viciousness and the hostility is going to be the same. And the mudslinging is going to be, the mud is going to be just as dirty, just as black and stick, or some of it is. So I think you have to assess that in the context of the fact that they have not come at him with both guns blazing yet.
Not yet. And I think we need to be mindful if that's what they're going to do. And you know what? When people come at you with all this garbage, I think you need to say, I'm all these things that whatever, and I still want to serve you. Next. Ain't nobody perfect. If you want someone perfect, why don't you be that yourself? Start there. Start there. I mean, what do you make of these? What do you make of this poll, Aaron Connolly? This is what you do.
Well, Uncle Bernie is beloved, right? I think we see that in his numbers when he comes as a surrogate for candidates. We've seen that consistently, that his policies, his approach, his straight talking attitude and working class values are really resonating. People want those types of candidates. They want to hear that. They want to be inspired. I'm not sure that there's a real vested interest for us to make a big play at a presidential run at this point. I think there's a lot of things that need to play out first before even approaching that conversation in any real way. And I don't think that's necessarily what Senator Sanders is going to do. I think he's building a great base of power by putting up candidates with progressive values for federal office. And we saw some big wins here in Illinois with Jonathan Jackson and Delia Ramirez and many more throughout the country. I want to look at the next generation of who is the Bernie Sanders candidate of the future, of the next generation that can resonate with some of these younger voters who have arguments at the current administration saying we need somebody that is younger, that understands, multi-generations, including Gen Z, who is now of voting age, right? We're seeing them able to vote, many in the midterms. So that'll be an interesting measure as well to see where that power of the people is going to lie. But what we see in turnout so far is progressives are turning out in big numbers. We see higher levels of voter registration among women in key states. That'll probably increase up to November. And as abortion becomes a critical issue and we see more corruption, as you mentioned, in the Supreme Court, and more corruption from the president who appointed many of our justices who are making these choices for us, there's a strong shot for Democrats and progressives in November. So let's keep that momentum up, and we'll see where these numbers go moving forward.
Hey, everybody, let's go to Michael from Chicago. Michael, what's on your mind?
Yes, I'm concerned about voter suppression in the city of Chicago. We're having it now. The Chicago Board of Election Commissioners are going to wipe out 40% of all the precinct locations for the November 8th election. And more importantly, they're going to wipe out 40% of the election judges. And they're the good people, our neighbors, who do the work to make the election go smoothly. Now, this was carried in the Chicago Tribune on August 22nd on the front page, and it's also carried in the Chicago Sun-Times on August 24th. Now, you can ask, why are they cutting out 700 precincts are going to be wiped out? They're going to be consolidated. They're going to take two little precincts and combine them into one big precinct. They say it's to save money. They're going to save $2 lousy million, which is not very much. And they could find that money, the city of Chicago, and some other places. Now, also, they have to do this because of the American for Disabilities Act. It would take 3 or 4 minutes to talk about that. I'm not going to get into that. It takes too long. People with wheelchairs and walkers, they do have a right under the law to go into the precincts. But it's very hard to find precincts that are constructed to let people in. That's been a problem. And they also blame COVID-19. Now, what I think, the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners, they want to force more people to use the mail-in ballots and to use the early voting sites. Now, I know they're being very tricky about this, the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners, but I believe because we're so close to the election, I would encourage people to use the mail-in ballots and to use the early voting sites. Now, in the mail-ins, you could go to the website of the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners right now, www.chicagoelections.gov, and start an application for mail-ins right now.
Okay.
And I think people had better do that because on November 8th, I think there's going to be some long lines at the precinct polling places. It's going to be very difficult.
Well, you saw.
No,
Michael, I want to thank you for that because you saw how many precincts were closed just in this election season, this primary season here in Chicago alone in June. Are we seeing this? Is this a trend Attorney Darrell Jones all across the country.
Is this a trend across the
Oh, hold on one second. Let me bring on Attorney Darrell Jones. He's the chairman of the board of the Transformative Justice Coalition. He and Attorney Robert Arnwine are really the foremost voting rights advocates in the country. And I thank you for bringing this up. I thank you for bringing this up. I mean, what about this, Darrell? Is this a trend?
Oh, it absolutely is a trend. It's certainly not limited to the city of Chicago or Illinois. We know, just this past week, the state of Arizona and their Supreme Court just stopped a ballot initiative by Arizona's citizens that would have expanded early voting and improved voter registration and prevented their state legislature from overturning presidential elections. So we know throughout the country, whether you're in Georgia or Florida, or Michigan for that matter, that there are a lot of initiatives that are being taken, and they're usually focused, almost narrowly focused with surgical precision to Black and brown areas to make it more difficult for Black, brown, and young voters to make it to the poll. So, so Michael is 100% correct. You gotta put a plan together now. You need to go to vote.org in advance and find out where it is that you are to vote, where it is. Has your polling place been moved? Go to vote.org and find that out. Michael is 100% correct that you've got to make that plan to vote and then vote the plan that you put in place. He's 100%, and it's all over the country. Don't limit yourself to just Chicago and Illinois. Understand that Michigan is a target state for it. Virginia is a target state for it. Arizona is a target state for it. Florida is a target state for it. Georgia is so Santita, it's all over the place. It's all over the place. But the one way to neutralize it is to go to that vote.org site and find out what your status is, and then make your plan on how to do your early voting if the state has early voting that's available.
Attorney Mark Fancher, we've got a lot going on here today. We see, the last is first. I know how biblically grounded you are. And I say that about Bernie Sanders, the person that the Democratic establishment loves to hate and hates love. But here is, he keeps the Democrats relevant, quite frankly. I'm a Bernie-crat just as a generation before I was a Jesse-crat. Well, I'll always be a Jesse-crat. That having been said, he has the highest favorability, but you don't hear about that on the news. I mean, at all, Mark. I know you're not surprised.
No, not at all. And I think that what it reflects, his popularity is a reflection of what I perceive as an ever-increasing level of consciousness among younger generations. They have had to deal with some very harsh realities in their young lives, whether it's George Floyd, whether it's the COVID epidemic, whether it's any number of things which have caused them to appreciate the importance of a society, a political system that actually meets the needs of real people. And I think without the reservations that older generations have had, they have looked very critically at the capitalist system as a whole, and they have no hesitation to attack it. Many of them going so far as to be on board with the idea of revolution. And so when you have someone like a Bernie Sanders who speaks to those kinds of sentiments, those kinds of concerns, then I think it resonates with a great many people. The problem is that Bernie Sanders remains within the Democratic Party as political establishment, that if he wants to bring his ideas to fruition, he will never be able to do it within those structures. He can talk a good game, but the system will not allow him to bring about a system, a society, a government that actually meets human needs, because it's not designed that way. It can never do it. The capitalist system must be destroyed. The political system must be overturned. That's the only way it will happen. And to the extent that people continue to engage in self-delusion and believe that they can create the type of society that they want through the existing process, through the existing system, then it's a drain on energy. It is a prescription for demoralization. It is something that causes people to lose hope
They finally cut me off.
They might be in a better position to, work for genuine revolution, which I think is ultimately what will happen, whether people like that or not.
Chaparral, what's on your mind today?
Yes, Santita. I wanted to say, after yesterday's after show conversation, I was talking to my friend down in Georgia, and she was telling me how, the Divine Nine actually helped Warnock in the first election, but they're not galvanized right now to get out the vote. And so I proposed to her, I was like, okay, well, where is the black leadership? Where is Obama? Where is Michelle? Where is Clyburn? Why aren't they stopping for him? So what I'm showing as a Democrat, the Democrats truly just they don't want to win, because they're not putting their star power out there. Now, if Beyonce and Jay-Z and all these people could come out to vote for Barack and support him, they can come out here and vote for Warnock. They can come stomp for Warnock. They can stomp for Val Demings. They can Charles Booker and Mandela Barnes. We have close races in all of these states. And so what I'm proposing is that the black leadership need to come out. And where is Nancy Pelosi? Where is Jamie Harrison? Where is the Democratic money behind these candidates? And so when y'all sit up here, y'all say, they're doing this. No. Where is their support? I'm not showing any support from the Democratic leadership helping these candidates that are very close, neck and neck, especially Warnock. Where's the black church? Where's Sharpton? Where's he at? Everybody should be there. So any little power or any substance should be there stopping for these candidates. He don't have to go negative, but he has to get some star power behind him. He does, because you're dealing with a star. You're dealing with a celebrity, so you got to bring your celebrities out. So if I was a Warnock, I would host a concert with all these young rappers right across the street from the polling place. You want a free ticket? You go vote, early vote. Why doing early voting? Because Trump has already taught us that we can do all this salacious stuff and get away with it, and it'll be cool. Tell Warnock to go ahead and host a concert right across the street from the polling place in the black neighborhood, and tell them they get a free ticket after they go vote. That's what I say, Santita.
Anyone want to respond? Stay right there, Chaparral. Yeah.
Absolutely, Santita. One of the things that Dwight McKee always preaches, and Chaparral, I think, will find some comfort in, is talking about the African American community being certain to step up and do its own thing, not waiting for anyone to come out and do it for us. Now, one of the things that the Transformative Justice, along with Rainbow Push, as well as the National Newspaper Publishers Association, is doing as we speak. We have an Arc of Voter Justice tour that is beginning in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We've teamed up with Rock Nation and Jay-Z and the group, and we're going to be hitting about 15 or 16 different stops across the country and encouraging African Americans and brown voters to come out and vote and get involved in the election series. So the very thing that Chaparral is saying about folks encouraging, exciting, and getting the voters in place, this bus tour is going to be doing exactly that. And so I agree with her that we need to have more of our top elected officials that are out there pushing. But I also agree with, I think, an analysis that I heard Dwight McKee give one previous time, is we've got to be certain that we push our own people on out there, that we not necessarily depend on any type of leadership to say that we've got to go. Let's get in the streets and get our folks out there ourselves. And that's what a large part of what we're calling the 10 million more black voter tour is going to be doing. So very excited to join Rock Nation and RBC through Bishop Grant, and as well as Dr. Ben Chavis with NNPA, that's also going to be involved in SNT. So the mantle that Chaparral is speaking of, the work that Chaparral is speaking of, is one that we're certainly picking up. We're seized on that moment, and we're hoping to continue the fire to bring up those 10 million black voters to support the candidates that will most help our community.
Well, Dwight McKee, what about your response to having Jay-Z, Beyonce, the Obamas, and other high-profile Democrats come out?
Well, I think you do everything you need to do, everything you can do. But again, you did on a state that's primarily, which a lot of them are very white and very conservative. And that's where your margins lie, and with some independents. And so in your strategy is to be able to pull as many blacks out as you can while not alienating that margin of whites that you're trying to get involved, because in those margins is the victory. And I think another thing that we have to be very honest about, since we have an honest discussion, is that some of these stars and guys who have political equity have to be very close. Very strategic is how much equity they're willing to put on the line for somebody who's been accused of wife abuse and child abuse. I mean, if I was an ex-president who had more capacity and leverage than any other politician in the country, and I lived off my credibility and my family image with me and my wife and my two girls, I'd be very careful how close I got to somebody whose own wife gets on television and says, this man tried to run me over with a car, and he didn't pay child support.
But Dwight, they showed that incident on television, and it was clear that he was not trying to run her over with a car. It was.
The reality is, if you have that kind of equity, you have to be very careful with where you're willing to leverage it. And that's the reality of politics, Santita.
Well, the reality of politics is if you dig deeply enough in anyone's background, I'm hearing you, Dwight, but if you dig deeply enough in anyone's background, you find things that are objectionable and awful. Okay? And and my thing is, I think that people need to come out and say, you know what, I am imperfect. And I don't know a case where people don't have broken hearts. My ex-wife has a broken heart, soon to be ex-wife, and I have a broken heart. And we have made some mistakes. I think you can start there. Start there.
I think what you have to deal with the reality of how people perceive that. And so, you could be as compromised as you in a situation like that. My point is that when you have people who have a lot to lose, then they have to be very careful as to what issues they get close to. And if your argument is, I was less of an abuser than my opponent was, then that is an argument that people who have stuff to lose have to assess before they invest that in your campaign. And I'm saying, talking as a social scientist, I don't have a dog in the fight. Mm-hmm. And I'm not, I'm not emotional about it. I'm just dealing with the science of, if you are the ex-president whose image is based on family values, and you're dealing in a state whose whole precept is based on family values, that if the issue is somebody's arguing that you didn't pay child support and your own ex-wife is on saying, this is what you did to me, you have to be very careful how you negotiate that in your own political career.
And I am agreeing with you. I am absolutely agreeing with you. And I've seen people who've had high profiles, some ministers in the pulpit even, who've had to speak to issues just like that. And I'm saying, I think that at some point we've got to evolve our politics and how we deal with these kinds of issues and just say, you know what, I am not perfect. If you want someone perfect, then run yourself. Some things are just not even worth fighting over, Dwight, because nobody's perfect. And if you dig down in everybody's background, including everybody on here, there's something that is objectionable. And you have to say, you know what, I did it, or I didn't do it, or, I made a mistake and I've grown. Next. Goodness gracious. I know that might sound Pollyanna-ish, but I'm just saying at some point.
Santita, let me respond.
Okay, now I've got about 30 seconds for you to respond.
My husband tried to run me over with a car is a far step from being just
What I'm trying to say to you, Dwight, is that they put that incident on television. She filmed it, and that is not the way that happened. This is a man who proposed to her in front of the entire Ebenezer congregation. I don't have a dog in the hunt in that way. To me, this is all very, very, very personal. Shoot, Ivana Trump accused Donald Trump of rape when they were married. And at some point, people, they care, they don't care. And I'm saying we need to grow up in our politics, period. Because let me tell you, Herschel Walker's wife said he tried to kill me. Kill me. Kill me. Yeah, and then you got a whole lot of other women behind that. I mean, no, let's talk about this. Wait a minute, because I got to sign off with the Santita Jackson Show. We're going to talk a couple more minutes right here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, just for a few more minutes, because I know we've all got to run today. But I want to thank you for being with us. We're going to have a Best Stuff show on Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson on Sunday, and I'll be back here on Wednesday. I can't wait to be with you then. In the meantime, have a blessed and glorious Labor Day weekend. Let's remember the workers and let us honor them. I love you, everybody. Thank you, Miss Andy. Thank you, Mr. Shari. Thank you, everybody. WCPT and AM 950 Radio. Sending you much love. Happy Labor Day, everybody. I'm Santita Jackson. Have a great weekend. Okay, Dwight. I'm gonna let you can have your say, and then I'm gonna get out of here.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a factor that people have to consider, that Herschel Walker has been accused of being a woman beater, and people are considering that, and they should consider that, because character is a major part of politics. And so I'm just saying that, but we have to be very honest about what we deal with in order to deal with it. And that's a reality that's on the table that we have to take a serious look at on both sides of that equation.
And that's why I'm saying to you, I'm in agreement with you, and I'm simply saying that there's a way to my way of thinking to deal with it, because we're going to continue to tear and pluck people. No, let me say this: I'm from a family who has run for office, and people pluck you apart. They just pluck you, and the people who do most of the plucking are the most flawed among us. And at some point, at the end of the day, Reverend was going to lead a march on Tallahassee, Florida. Tallahassee, Florida. What was he going to do? It was at the beginning of 2000, the democracy, because the Bushes and the Cheneys were going to steal the election, and that is exactly what we did. Now 1 million Iraqis who have been killed subsequent to that. Now at a crashed economy, because the economy crashed on his watch. All of that, we stopped the march. Oh my gosh, we found out that Jesse Jackson had a child out of wedlock. Painful, personal, but at the end of the day, this girl's grown out of college and making her way in the world, and now we got a million dead Iraqis, and the country is about to collapse. I mean, really? And Reverend dealt with it like a man. And Reverend dealt with it like a man. He came. No, wait a minute. He came out. He said, "Yep, I did it. It's painful. I'm working this out with my wife, my children. I'm taking care of my child. What else can I do?" And at some point, you just have to man and woman up. Let me finish. You have to man and woman up on the stuff that you do, because everybody's got intestines, which means everybody's got mess.
And that's my point. That's what Warnock has to do. He has to man up, says here's what the real thing is.
Yeah, and so should Herschel Walker. And so should Herschel Walker, who is absolutely doing none of that. He's doing none of it. None of it. And it sickens me. Well, you got all those starving people down there. You got all those starving people down in Georgia. You got all these sick people and people. We have COVID relief that we cannot get. I mean, really? And that's why I'm saying there's a way to do this, Dwight. There's a way to do it. To step to the mic and say, boom, you know what? This is who I am.
That's my exact point, Santita, but you can't ignore it.
I'm not ignoring it.
You cannot ignore it. You have to confront it, and you have to put your campaign beyond it and say, this is not about me. This is for the greater good.
And that's why I'm saying to you, we're in agreement, Dwight, but I'm saying I'm taking you to a textbook way to do it. And my thing is, because I'm only hearing you mention Warnock. I'm like, wait a minute. You got such a nasty record with Herschel Walker. And the thing is, I'm telling you, because I know human beings and human nature, I'm not trying to get in anybody's mess. I'm not trying to do that. What I'm trying to say is, you know what? You know what? You got these issues. You got these issues. What about the issues that I need you to go to Washington and deal with? Boom. That's all I'm saying. Because at the end of the day, people's scandals and all the stuff that you think that not you, but that we all care about so much, they fade away. People go on about their business. As well they should. As you go on about yours. As you find out your husband got a child. Or something. As you want to jump across the table at your husband or your wife. Because anyone who's been in a relationship, things can get so heated, you have to walk out the room. Otherwise, it's going to get ugly.
But the question, Santita, was, how come black leadership don't jump out there in Warnock's behalf in spades? And I'm answering the question. These are the reasons that they will be hesitant about. And so it has to be scientifically analyzed and confronted if you're going to get past it.
And I'm saying I agree with you, and I'm saying where I see them, they are being disingenuous and dishonest and hypocritical. Because all these people who we're talking about, whose names we will not mention, have the same kind of personal problems. So I don't even want to hear it. Chaparral, anybody, you all still there? Because we're going to have to wrap things up, unfortunately. I love it when it gets like this, but I got to run. Chaparral, anybody still there?
I'm still here, Santita. I just think that, what I was saying was, where are they? But the reality is, like you said, no one is perfect. Hell, even Barack wasn't perfect. So the thing is that they have to. This is, to me, it's a both and. It's not either or. They know that they can go out here and stomp for these people if they choose to. He has to stomp for nobody, even if the person was perfect. He ain't been out there. He do what he want to do, and he is not. He's very self-centered, and he only wants to help himself. So if it doesn't benefit him directly, he ain't doing it. And
who are you talking about?
He Obama. He has not helped anyone. Hell, he didn't even help Joe Biden. I think he went the last week to go out there and help him.
Would you think he could have helped Joe Biden? Or because even though he's beloved in some quarters, he is vilified in others. Do you think that he made a calculation and said, hey, I don't want to hurt you?
I don't think it was a calculation. I just think that he think about how he has dismantled and left the Democratic Party broke. He chose to take all the funds and make a whole nother 501c3 or whatever, another PAC, a political PAC, and make Obama for America. So everybody was giving money to Obama for America as opposed to the DNC. So there's a lot of stuff that he did that was kind of salacious, and he knows what he was doing. And so to me, he has always been looking out for himself and not for the party. But what I'm saying is that these four races that I talked about, are so very close. It only takes a little star power to push him over the edge into the winning stage. Because we have a lot of missing youth that have not been touched, and so we have to begin to touch these youth in a way that they can relate. They don't, they're not into looking at politics every day on TV or anything like that. So we have to get out in the street. And that's what I'm not showing that Warnock, or I think Mandela Barnes is in the street. He's going day to day. And Val Deming, everybody needs to get on the street with the real people and get out. Like you used to say, get out in the street. That's what needs to happen.
Dwight, you want to respond to Chaparral?
I think Sproul is exactly right. And the Atlanta crowd sees Warnock, and I'm not, I'm a social scientist. I just tell you the facts. Mm-hmm. Is they see him as a little aloof and a little sweet lock. And so they don't see him as a man of the people, and they could, because he has that kind of charisma, that kind of personality. He just does not have that kind of strategy. And I think she's exactly right. That's what I'm saying about Obama, not just him, but that crowd is their first calculation is how it's going to affect me and my image, not so much as what it's going to do for the people in the party. And so you have to be able to give them a reason, at least in their minds, as to why they want to invest in your career, even if it helps the people. And so that's why I said that his argument is that his argument can't be, I'm the lesser of two evils. His argument has to be, here is what I want to do for the people. Here is why this is important for you all that I'm elected. And here is the margin of difference in the Democratic Party that will get these legislations passed that would help you and your family. And focus on that, on his deliverable.
But you and I are not in disagreement on that at all,
That's
Dwight.
why I said the Democratic Party don't want to win. That's why I said they don't want to win, because they know what they need to do in order to. I mean, we're sitting up here with President Biden, who knows that if he enacts a strong voter suppression rights law and put it into effect, that he will have so many more millions of votes for the Democratic Party, and he is still tempted on doing that. And so they are making calculated decisions for corporate America under the disguise that black people, the people that they're going to blame if these candidates lose, is black people didn't come out and vote. And that's what they always do. They always blame us for their
every time
for these candidates. And so we have to be very clear when we think about where's the money. I mean, Jamie Harrison, he should be in these states every single day, every week. He should be going from one state to another and pumping these things up. I just don't see the energy in the Democratic Party. I haven't heard anything from Nancy Pelosi. I haven't even heard the progressives come out for these candidates. What is going on? Everybody's sitting back waiting till the last minute, and they're going to think that they're going to be able to come to black people, and black people are very disengaged. You're not even talking to our issues. We have mass incarceration, police brutality. We have job losses. We have not recovered from this pandemic, black people. So, they're not even addressing our issues, but you want our vote. And so this is where I'm concerned. And then they're going to try to slide in here and basically try to hurry us up to go and vote. It's not going to happen. You have to be strategic in this, and you have to get your boots on the ground.
And then blame black people, because if you only come out, get out of here. I'm like, black folks are coming out. We're giving you, we are delivering. You're not delivering to us. Period. But but like I said, I maintain that at some point, that's why I'm like, be honest. Hey, be honest. Just say, look, hey, everybody's dealing with what they're dealing with, and I'm having a hard time too. That is what goodness gracious. I mean, I saw talk about someone who did it magnificently. It was Marion Barry. It's like, yeah, I've got my flaws, and I've hurt people's feelings, but I hurt myself most of all. And if you want to vote for me, I will serve you. But I'm going to serve you whether I'm in elective office or not. And he had a state funeral. No D.C. mayor has been buried with as much a fanfare and appreciation as Marion Barry, because he served the people. And he was honest about, you know what? I'm human. I got my issues, but I'm here for you. How about that? So that's just where I am with all of this. At some point, I'm like, honey, you keep on living, and everybody's a mess. Everybody. Ain't no perfect person among us. And people need to stop doing that stuff. People need to stop doing that. Just need to stop it. Stop it. You don't even remember Donna Rice and Gary Hart. You don't even remember it. You don't even care about it. Cared about it at the time while you're dealing with your own mess at home. I mean, really? Honey, if you want someone perfect, turn the channel, because I am not that one. But I'm going to get up for you every day. I'm going to try and do as much research as I can. I'm going to do everything that I can to to give you information so that you can make up your own minds. That's all I can promise you that I'm going to do. Perfection, I can't make you that promise, and I'm not going to even try. I'm not going to even try. So, Dwight, you want to say, make some final comments before we go?
Well, I just agree with everything Squirrel said, and Mark today.
Mark, is anyone still there? Anyone? Is anyone still there? Okay. All right. Well, I think that's it. Well, you know what? I love you all, Dwight. I love you. I love you, Chapearl. Chapearl's always going to come up with something, a little firecracker, my girl. So I can't, I'll have to call Chapearl so I can find out when I'm getting my food. I'm sorry, Dwight did not call to get his food in, but I got mine. And so I am very happy about that. I'm going to get my baked beans that have ground beef in it. It's going to be wonderful. But I love you all so much. And I hope that you all have a wonderful holiday weekend. I will see you on Wednesday. Going to take off Monday and Tuesday, obviously. And get some things together around here. Love you. That's right. Let me keep it 100. That's right. I mean, I'm tired of people being so hypocritical. And if you're going to throw out the baby with the bathwater, shame on you. You're going to ignore all the good things that people can tell you, even as they are flawed. Everybody you know is flawed. Everybody you know who's stepping out on this stage, most of the time, having had something devastating happen to them during the day. And yet they come and they perform, and they come and they try to offer themselves. And you need to give people credit for that, for giving you their best when they have had their worst. I was talking to a friend of mine about someone who's very, very famous. They bumped into her in the airport, and they were very upset because, she was not nice to me. But I said, do you know what she went through before she saw you? Do you have any idea? While this woman's waiting for the plane? Well, he didn't know that this woman had found out that one of her children was gravely ill, scared, nervous. Scared, trying to figure out how she can get through this next event so she can get home to see her baby. But when I called my friend to tell them that, an acquaintance, not a friend, they didn't really care, because they just wanted to be able to have us takeaway stories so they could say that they saw so-and-so in the airport and how this person hugged them, they took a picture, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Please, ridiculous. Nobody has time for all of that. So everybody, look, love you. God bless you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Please, everybody, get registered to vote. Go to vote.org, and find out if you are still on the voter rolls. Go on and get registered to vote. We are within 70 days of the midterms. They're right here, everybody. They're right here. And so you go on and get involved. I love you, everybody. See you. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy yourselves. Cover up that food. Don't talk over that food. Do the great hand hygiene. Please take care of yourselves throughout the weekend. I love you, everybody. God bless.